there was this quote by Sheryl that said, Caitlin was, 25 years old.
Yeah, and it's not to take anything away from what she's done, but if you're talking about breaking records, then if this player did it in this amount of time, then you should do it in that same amount of time. I mean, if you want to talk about bullies, we can talk about every time Caitlin has the ball, she pushes off.
Oh, no.
I'm just saying.
Remember when Sheryl Swoopes said Caitlin Clark's records weren't legitimate because she played more games? Turns out that claim was completely false. And now Swoopes is paying the price with her broadcasting career. The WNBA just fired her from all broadcasts for the 2025 season. I'm going to walk you through 5 key moments that led to Swoopes' downfall. From her mass player exodus as Loyola's coach, to her friendship-ending fight with Nancy Lieberman, to her desperate damage control on ESPN, where she suddenly praised Clark after months of criticism. You won't believe how predictable this ending actually was. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. You might think Swoopes got fired just because of one bad comment about Caitlin Clark, but this goes way deeper than that. Let me show you the whole picture of why Sheryl Swoopes found herself in this position. This wasn't a one-time slip-up. It was the culmination of years of problematic behavior that finally caught up with her. Remember when Swoopes was coaching at Loyola University, Chicago? That job should have been her stepping stone to bigger things as a basketball legend moving into coaching. Instead, it became the first major red flag about her leadership style. In 2016, something almost unheard of happened. 10 of her players transferred out of the program all at once. Not 1 or 2 players having issues with a tough coach, but 10 players deciding they couldn't take it anymore. One player who left didn't mince words, saying Swoopes thrives off drama, and created an environment so toxic that the mass exodus was inevitable. This wasn't about Swoopes being a demanding coach who pushed players to excellence.
How much more experience that gives you over other players coming in, right? So people say, dang, like he or she's killing them, but you have a 25-year-old playing against a 20-year-old. I mean, if you want to talk about bullies, we can talk about every time Caitlin has the ball, she pushes off.
Oh, no.
I'm just saying.
Well, you said she brought the noise, and I'd be remiss not to mention lately getting involved in some controversy.
The players described something much more disturbing, a coach who would deliberately pit teammates against each other, creating divisions in the locker room instead of unity. Former players talked about feeling worthless under her leadership. They said she would single out individuals for harsh criticism in front of the team, not as constructive feedback, but in ways that felt personal and demeaning. These weren't just complaints about tough practices. These were serious allegations about psychological tactics that damaged team chemistry and player confidence. Loyola eventually fired Swoopes after this disaster, but unfortunately, she carried these same interpersonal issues into her broadcasting career. Instead of learning from past mistakes, she seemed to develop a pattern of making factually incorrect statements about players, with Caitlin Clark becoming her most frequent target.
Yeah, and it's not to take anything away from what she's done, but if you're talking about breaking records, then if this player did it in this amount of time, then you should do it in that same amount of time.
It's so incredibly important. We have to bridge that gap between what's going on today and what we experience. And it will help the younger generation to know our experiences so that they don't make the same mistakes and we continue to soar.
She was taking 40 shots a game. Her records were illegitimate. And I got off the treadmill and I called her as a friend.
During broadcasts, Swoopes repeatedly questioned Clark's achievements with factually wrong information. She claimed Clark's records weren't legitimate because she played more games than previous record holders, something that was easily verifiable as false. Clark actually played fewer games than many of her predecessors when breaking these records, but Swoopes kept pushing this narrative anyway. Things got so bad that even Stephen A. Smith, not exactly known for being gentle in his criticism, called her out on national television. During one ESPN segment, he confronted her directly, saying, "There is no way in hell you just accidentally left Caitlin Clark's name out," when Swoopes was discussing the Indiana Fever's improvement without mentioning their star rookie. The situation even cost Swoopes a long-standing friendship. Nancy Lieberman, another women's basketball legend, confronted Swoopes about these inaccuracies regarding Clark. The conversation conversation apparently went so poorly that they stopped speaking altogether. In a twist that shows how serious the networks took this issue, Lieberman actually replaced Swoops on Dallas Wings broadcasts, a clear statement about which analysts they felt had more credibility. The WNBA and its broadcast partners started noticing that this wasn't just about one mistake or a personal beef with Clark.
Well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record.
Brought that noise. And the fact that she can knock down the NBA three-pointer, especially back then, and still get to the rim when you play up on her, like she was cat quick. She just really brought the complete package.
How important, and there's no doubt about the greatness of Sheryl Swoopes and her impact on basketball, not just women's basketball, but basketball in general.
This was about something fundamental to being a broadcaster: credibility. When your entire job revolves around providing accurate commentary and analysis, repeatedly spreading misinformation becomes a serious problem that undermines the product. So what exactly was the final straw that led to Swoopes being removed from broadcasts? During a podcast appearance, she questioned the legitimacy of Clark's NCAA scoring record, claiming Clark had more games to break it than previous players. She said this with complete confidence, despite it being demonstrably false information that anyone could verify with a simple Google search. This was especially damaging because it wasn't said in the heat of the moment during live commentary. This was on a podcast where she had time to prepare her thoughts and check her facts.
She's not just a three-point shooter. She's a great passer, not a mediocre passer, not so-so. She is a great passer.
And if you just get ahead of this and just say, hey, I made a mistake on my numbers, then this thing is over and everybody respects you for your opinion.
This isn't just for Caitlin, but you asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player said it.
The deliberate nature of the misinformation made it impossible for networks to dismiss it as a simple mistake. The WNBA couldn't afford to have someone consistently spreading misinformation about its biggest star at a time when the league is experiencing unprecedented growth. Clark's arrival has brought record viewership, attendance, and merchandise sales. Having a broadcaster repeatedly attempting to diminish her achievements with false information was becoming a liability the league couldn't ignore. Looking at what really happened with Sheryl Swoopes, it's clear the WNBA had to make a business decision. The league is growing like crazy right now, and they can't afford to have someone on broadcast who's constantly getting facts wrong and bringing negativity. This wasn't just about defending Caitlin Clark, it was about the WNBA prioritizing accuracy over protecting a legend who became a liability to their brand. The message is crystal clear. No matter who you are in the basketball world, if you're hurting the product with misinformation, you're out. The WNBA is finally getting its spotlight, and they're not letting anyone dim it.